Hey Shane, hey man, I wanted to respond to your messages here via video because quite frankly, I need to practice. I'm doing a lot more on YouTube, and I thought this would be a fun way to just respond and kind of get to interact with you and whatnot. And I was chewing on some gum earlier. I don't know if you saw this, but I spit it out. Okay, I don't know why I felt it was important to say that, but anyway, let me dive into your questions. I am battling some allergy stuff here during allergy season. I'll try not to cough in the microphone too much, but it will happen. I'm almost going to guarantee that. So, question number one: what is your business model? So, when I think about real estate investing, there are really two different business models, right? There's the active, and then there's the passive, right? We all want to do more passive. At least I believe we all want to do more passive, but we are lucky enough, my wife and I are lucky enough to actually participate on both sides of the street when it comes to the business model, right? We actively look for deals, we actively do diligence on bigger properties, and then we passively invest. We're in a couple of syndications where people who we know that we trust with our money, and we gave it to them, and they gave us. It wasn't a guarantee. If anybody offers you a guarantee, that's a telling sign that you need to run. But they presented some really good investment opportunities. We gave them some money, and we're getting those monthly or quarterly distributions. So we actually participate on both sides because I am a full-time real estate entrepreneur, investor, what have you. Question number two: do you emphasize long-term holding of property or quick turn buying and selling? So I actually emphasize long-term holding. And let me clarify that. We've been investing for almost 7 years now. The longest that we've ever held a rental property has been about 3 years, right? And it's just because of the market conditions. We look for, number one, our investment criteria is cash flow. So that's where the long-term focus comes in. Number two is appreciation, right? And there are a couple of formulas that we use to determine when it's time to exit a property. There's the 0.5% rule, right? Which if the property is renting for 0.5% of what it can sell for, it is time to move on, right? So we've actually ran into that here recently with everything that the market's doing, and we've been able to cash out some very nice positions here recently. But I focus on the long-term buy and hold, right? Number three, do you have a specialty? I think what you mean here is the asset type, possibly. If not, that's how I'm going to answer. So, when it comes to real estate investing, we've focused on, I've done a little bit of everything, right? So we've done single family buy and hold, mobile home buy and hold. Recently, we did a for sale by owner with owner financing on a mobile home. I've been a general partner on a syndication, a limited partner on a syndication, and the small multifamily space. So those 2 to 4 unit space. And what I can say is I haven't really ever thought about this until your question. So thank you for the question, and also thank you for the opportunity to be able to do this. We don't necessarily have a specialty, but when I look back across the last 7 years, we've made our most of our money in this small multifamily space, that 2 to 4 units. We've experienced the highest percentage of returns. One of the funnest stories for me to tell is we had a duplex. It's 5 minutes down the road from where I'm sitting right now, and we bought that property. The same tenant stayed in it the entire time we held it. We sold it 3 years later, and never stepped foot in it. Never stepped foot in it at all. But from the time we bought it to the time we sold it and all the rents that we collected, we experienced a 396% return just on that duplex, which is almost unheard of, right? So 100% annualized return, over 100% annualized return in just 3 years. Pretty incredible. But we've got a fourplex in our portfolio now. It's doing extremely well. We've had another small multifamily in our portfolio before, did extremely well. And then we're under contract to buy 4 quadplexes right now that on paper so far, the pro forma is showing that they're going to perform extremely well. So I've never really thought about, do I have a specialty? But if I'm tracing the breadcrumbs, the specialty that I should focus on is that small multifamily. So thank you again for that question. Number 4, what do you look for in a real estate agent? The biggest thing that I look for in a real estate agent is 2 things, right? So there's 2 things that I look for. Number 1, that they work with investors and they're on the same page as investors. What I mean by that is almost every real estate agent has probably sold a property to an investor, and then they check that box off that they work with investors. And that's something I figured out early on is there are agents, and I don't think they're telling a lie. When you ask them, hey, have you ever worked with real estate investors? Well, yeah, they've sold them a property. But what I look for is somebody who understands the mindset of an investor, right? Meaning that most of the time, you're not going to get a retail price offer, right? You're going to be, as an agent, you're going to be offering something that's below, sometimes way below. Matter of fact, the agent that I have worked with the most, he represents me very well, gives me some great advice. And the funny thing is, he calls me Mr. Lowball, right? Now, sorry about that. He deserves the right to call me that. He has earned the right to call me that nickname. He's made a lot of offers for me. A lot of them have panned out. Over the years, we've done 13 transactions together. And it's because of he is willing to represent me and my interest and understands why I came to those offers. And at times when he doesn't understand that where I came to make that kind of offer that's well below retail, he offers it anyway. He submits it, right? He's not worried about his reputation. He's worried about representing me and getting me this next property that's going to do very well for my family, right? So that's 2 big things. Number 1 is somebody who works with investors, not exclusively, but somebody who understands the investor mindset and kind of where they're going through, right? And trying to find that next property, especially inside this market that we're in. And number 2, somebody who is going to represent what's the phrase I'm looking for? Somebody who's going to represent me in a transaction and not look for just getting the transaction done, because I know that's how you guys get paid. But somebody who's looking after my best interest before their own is probably how I should put that, right? What issues do you run into with agents? So let me read that again. What issues do you run into with agents? So new agents, when we're dealing, like if it's a new market or whatnot, they don't know who I am. I don't know who they are. There's that a lot of, especially right now in this market, I heard an interesting stat the other day that there are more real estate agents than there are listings right now. So I think it was something like there's 1.2 million listings right now, but there's 1.5 million agents, right? So you guys are scrambling, agents are scrambling for to get deals done. And with that low amount of inventory, you guys, because you're strictly commission based, I mean, it's either feast or famine right now. And for the folks who are famining, is famining? Is that a word? I don't know. Anyway, you can tell, like I've been around, I guess, long enough. I've dealt with or interacted enough with a lot of real estate agents to know that when they're just trying to get the transaction done because they need a paycheck, or if they really have my interest at heart, right? Because I don't have to have every deal. I don't have to have every closing. We're looking for very specific types of properties, and we want to get them at a very specific price to make all of our calculations. So one of the things I run into with real estate agents is them not understanding who I am, in my ability to close, and then also understanding why I'm offering on that price. They seem to, the agents that I don't work with, that I refuse to work with, are those that come back and they'll say, well, it's listed at this. Well, somebody else is going to pay that for it, not me, right? That number doesn't allow me to hit my numbers, doesn't allow me to hit my cash flow. So here's my offer. And I've had even some that have refused to make an offer, right? Which I know they're not supposed to do, but they do it. But yeah, that's the, and when those conversations happen, I know that agent, while they may have passed through the filter of, do you work with real estate investors? Now I get a better sense of what kind of investors they work with. And there's not going to be a whole lot of relationship building going on there, because this thing's not going to happen. They're looking for a transaction. I'm looking for the next 5 transactions, right? Number 6, why did you become a real estate investor? Man, I have so much material on this, but I'll try to make it short. When my wife and I found out we were pregnant with kid number 1, the company that I was a principal at, it was announced that we were getting acquired. And sorry. That acquisition by no means was going well at all. I mean, it was just a horrible experience. So I woke up every day thinking, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get laid off. I've got a pregnant wife. What's going to happen? We're living paycheck to paycheck. So all of those pressure points pushed me to find real estate investing. It pushed me to find Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. And that book had such a fundamental and phenomenal shift on the way how I look at not only just earning money, but basically building, wealth for my family. So the biggest reasons why I became a real estate investor is because of all those pressure points of living paycheck to paycheck, got a pregnant wife. The company I was a principal at was acquired, and I was fearful, stress, anxiety over every day over, hey, am I going to get laid off? Am I going to get fired? What's going on? So all those kind of pushed me to seek out real estate investing. Number 7, how did you get started in real estate investing? Our very first property was here in Pensacola, Florida, and it was a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, 600 square foot foreclosure. Cost us $23,000, I think, to purchase. And then we spent about $9,000 renovating, not really renovating. We had to put a roof on. We had a lot of structural things that we had to deal with, some electrical, some plumbing, things of that nature that we had to do to make it livable. And that's how we got started. So that was our very first, what I consider very first rental property. The guy who sold me that property, speaking of real estate agents, the guy who sold me that property is the guy who we ended up doing 13 transactions with over the last several years. And you probably can hear my kids in the background. Sorry about that. But they, hey, what are you going to do? But that's how we got started. Number 8, what is a big lesson you've learned through your experience? The biggest lesson I've learned is trust your gut, right? Is to trust your gut. And I know I've had this guy on the podcast, the W2 Capitalist podcast, a couple of times, Dr. Gleb Tispersky. And he is totally against this whole don't trust your gut, whatnot. But there are some recent research and recent studies that show that your gut and your brain are actually connected. There's this particular enzyme. I'm not going to get into the whole technical thing because I'm going to blow that out of the water and just not do it justice. But there is a connection basically between sometimes when you're like, you have that gut feeling, that we all talk about. It is actually coming from your brain. And so when people say trust your gut as one of those things, trust your gut. I'll give you a second one too. It is, know your investing criteria and stick to them. Don't try to fudge the numbers on a spreadsheet to make the deal work on paper, because the moment that I did that, and I've done that once before, this property, we owned it for about 3 years. Overall, it cost us about $10,000 to hold that property for 10 years. And it's all because I go back to this. The kids are screaming in the background. But I go back to, I got excited about the deal. I wanted the deal to work on paper. I was hungry for our next opportunity. Luckily, it was just our money that we lost. It wasn't investors' money. But yeah, stick to the second pointer there is know your investing criteria and stick to them. Keep finding deals, keep researching deals till you find a deal that hits those investing criteria. Number 9, what tips would you give individuals looking to become real estate investors? So the biggest thing that has helped us be successful as a real estate investor is to be able to surround ourselves with like-minded individuals. We didn't start out this way. We bought a couple of properties because we had listened to all the podcasts and read all the podcasts. Wow, that's a lot of podcasts. We had listened to several podcasts, probably a couple hundred, and it was just my wife and I. We were trying to figure this out. We were reading books or listening to books or listening to podcasts, but we didn't have that core support group who said, yeah, that is absolutely correct. You need to do this. Or no. Based on my experience, I wouldn't do that at all, right? We didn't have that in place. Sorry, lost my train of thought. Felt the cough coming up. But we didn't have that support system, your circle of influence surrounding us to encourage us. Neither one of our parents were very encouraging in the whole investing in real estate thing. Mine still are not, right? Even though it's what I do full time and we make a pretty damn good living at it. They want me to go back and get a normal W-2. So point being is what was the question? The biggest tip I can give you, if you're looking to become a real estate investor, is to start surrounding yourself with people who have accomplished just a little bit more than what you've accomplished so far, right? I mean, you've got your friends. Hopefully y'all are all listening to the same podcast and reading the same books, and you guys get together and you talk about, hey, did you hear this? Blah, blah, blah. And that's great. If you don't have that yet, then you need to start hanging out with different people, right? You need to start finding that tribe, what I like to call a tribe, that is going to serve you extremely well in this aspect. And then you need to turn it up a notch. And I'm not saying go after like a Grant Cardone, kind of trying to hang around in his circle. Just if you haven't done a deal yet, go hang out with somebody who has done a deal, right? And start spending more time with them. And then once you do your first deal, then go find some other people who've done 5 deals and start improving your circle that way. That has been the biggest thing to help us exponentially grow, is getting around in those like-minded people who have the same ambitions and or focused on growing faster than us, or they have just a little bit more experience than we do, right? It's a constant upward spiral, I guess I should say, or call it. Number 10. Excuse me. Number 10, what tips, and this is the last one, right? So number 10, what tips would you give agents working with real estate investors? So I think agents who want to work with real estate investors need to realize that they are not typically, depending on market conditions, they're not typically going to be somebody who pays retail, right? You're going to pay lower than the list price, sometimes dramatically lower. And you've got to be willing to do that, right? You've got to be willing to represent that investor in the deal. And I know this is a hard concept to grasp, but look at putting your own self to the side and representing that buyer, your investor, uh, putting their needs before your needs, right? Is the kind of point I'm going there. And the reason I say that is the guy who sold us the little yellow house, that first, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 600 square foot house. He did that. There was a handful of agents prior to him that would not accept our offers, would not make offers. I don't know how they got past that. I didn't push them on the issue. I just knew that I was not going to waste my time working with those folks because I was not willing to offer retail, right? Because, and if, let me back up. I'm not saying I'll never offer retail, but typically in order for us to hit our numbers, we're coming in lower, right? And sometimes dramatically lower. But the point I'm saying is investors, there are always investors in any market, right? It doesn't matter where we're at in the cycle. There are investors looking for deals, and sorry. But the difference about working with investors is that they're going to offer less, right? They're going to be able to offer less. But here's the thing, and I'll kind of close with this, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'm going to go back to the 1 bedroom, 1 bath, the realtor, his name's Rob, that Rob worked with us on that. He gave me some guidance up front. He said, look, here's where I think you need to come in. You give me your number, but here's where I think you need to come in to be able to get this deal done. We followed his guidance. We went a little lower, but eventually we came back and we had to up our price a little bit. We got the deal done, but because he was willing to offer our initial request, right, and not beat us up over it and give us some underhanded comments. I know a lot of agents like to do that. Well, blah, blah, blah. Hey, that's where you want to come in at? Let's do it. That mentality and that attitude right there earned him 13 transactions over the next several years, right? So it's all about serving the needs of the investor before you're looking at, oh, I just need to get this transaction done. Oh, I don't want to be known as the realtor who comes in at 30% below the ask, right? Well, if the deal warrants a 30% below the ask, you should be willing to represent your buyer, your investor buyer, to do that. Anyway, that's my tips. Shane, I hope this helps you out, man. Thank you again for the opportunity. Really do appreciate it. If you have any other questions or needing any further clarity on anything that I answered here, please let me know. Reach out. And I apologize for coughing in your ear. I tried to limit that as much as possible.